Right. So I drew, since I didn't have like a little ladder or anything handy, I drew my own ladder to represent each level that Will goes on because I am choosing to do the scene of Will riding down each floor on the elevator and meeting each person. So I have a lighter for Buck because he's the one that kind of sparks this all and he actually does light a cigarette. So I chose a lighter for him. And then for Danny, I chose a scrunchie because she's very beautiful and Will has a huge crush on her. And I just think that scrunchies are pretty hair ties. So I have Danny for a scrunchie. And then I have a piece of popcorn for Uncle Mark because he chose to run a street corner to get money to buy a camera and make a movie. So I chose a piece of popcorn because everyone eats popcorn when they watch movies. For the next character, I chose actually one of our books because Pop gets on the elevator and he ends up telling Will his story of what actually happened before he died. And then for the next person who gets on the elevator, I have a necklace or a chain because Frick then gets on the elevator and he killed Buck because he planned on robbing him for his jewelry, but Buck ended up swinging on him and then he actually killed Buck. So I chose the chain for Frick. And then last but not least, well, I have actually hand sanitizer for Will himself because he has the option to be pure and clean, just like hand sanitizer. And then, now last but not least, I mean, it's a mask, but I really chose it for the redness because Sean steps on the elevator last and he is still wearing his blood-soaked clothing from when he got shot. So I chose red for the blood on his clothes. I wanted to choose the elevator scene because I wanted to focus on how Will develops this doubt and how he comes to his decision at the end of the book. Okay, so to set the scene, we have Will entering the elevator, getting on the elevator at the 7th floor, and he is met with Buck, who first says that he reveals himself. He's wearing a t-shirt that commemorates his own death, so we realize that it's Buck. And he tells Will that he's checking on his gun. So we also learn that this gun used to belong to Buck, and then it was passed down to Sean, and then now Will. So we kind of find out that the only two owners of this gun are now dead, and I think it made me realize as a reader, like, hey, since these two guys are dead, they've been following the rules and stuff. This could now happen to Will. So it kind of sparks doubt in Will's mind too, and Buck ends up telling Will that he doesn't think he has what it takes to go out and actually kill Riggs. So this also sparks Will's first moments of feeling doubt and angst in doing this. So as Will continues down to the next floor, he meets Danny, and when he sees Danny, she asks him multiple times why he needs the gun and what happens if he misses. The story also plays back the moment when Danny died, and I think this all creates doubt for Will because it kind of shows what gun violence can do to your friends and your family members. And then obviously when Danny asks what if he misses, it's kind of like, well, what if I do miss? What happens? So this furthers Will's doubt in going through with killing Riggs. So after Will met Danny, he then goes down to the next floor and meets Uncle Mark, the piece of popcorn. And when he meets Uncle Mark kind of plays a director again, because he takes Will through, or he sets the scene for Will to kind of play out what will happen if he actually goes out and shoots Riggs. And he then asks what happens after he shoots Riggs. Like, what are you gonna do? And Will actually tells him, like, no, that's the end. And then Uncle Mark kind of laughs, you know. So this also would really spark some doubt in Will's mind about what he's going to do, what his plan is after this, because you know, it doesn't just end there, and someone could come after him. So these thoughts start going through Will's mind. As a reader, this is what I think personally. So I think that you know, Will's kind of like, oh my gosh, I don't know what's gonna happen. So now Will goes down another floor, and he is met with Pops, who Will thought had followed the rules, which Pops was trying to follow the rules actually, but he then tells Will the actual story of what happened, and we find out that Pops actually killed the wrong person when trying to follow the rules, and this was a big one, I think, for Will, because he doesn't know for sure if Riggs is the person or not. So he could end up like Pops. So this furthers his feelings of doubt. And then Pops then puts the gun to Will's head. And this scares the bejeebies out of Will, because he then wets himself. And personally, I think that would be enough to scare me out of doing something. So when that happens, Will, I feel like at this point is like, oh my gosh, what the heck have I gotten myself into? But, you know, he's still going to ride down. He still has not been fully convinced that he is not going to ride back up the elevator. Now as we get down through the elevator, we are met with Frick, who is this chain. So Will is here with Frick. And he learns that Frick was actually the one who killed Buck because he was trying to rob him. And even though Buck actually gave the chain to Sean, he was still trying to rob him. So this kind of like, just clarification from earlier, he was trying to rob him. So this is like a possession that someone would maybe want to steal from someone else. So anyway, it just kind of sets the scene on how messy things can get, and it shows Will that anything can happen out on the streets. So if you're going to put yourself into that situation, stuff like that is going to happen to you. You're not safe out there. Our final scene is set when Will comes face to face with his dead brother, Sean, and as they meet, it's kind of an awkward situation because Sean he's not talking to Will at all. So Will tries to embrace Sean, and he's just kind of standing there awkwardly, doesn't really say anything. Will ends up crying, Sean ends up crying after Will tells him that he's scared, he doesn't know what to do, and asks him if he's doing the right thing. So Sean starts crying, which is breaking the first rule. And when he does this, I think that it really moves Will, because Sean was the one that taught him the rules. So it's kind of like, oh wow, my own brother's breaking the rules. And he realizes that he doesn't love him any less for crying. And I think it shows Will that it's okay to cry. And the elevator doors, they finally open, and Will gets off, everyone gets off, or Sean gets off, everyone gets off, and Will is left there. And then Sean turns around and he asks, "Are you coming?" And the book ends there. But personally, as a reader, I think that because of all of these characters creating doubt in Will's mind and um, sharing their own personal stories and what happened to them, I think it made Will realize that this isn't for him. This isn't what he wants to do. He doesn't want to continue this violence. Um, and so I believe that he rides back up. And I think that the community was safer because of it. And I think that Will was safe because of it.